Welcome to Ask Cadence, everybody. My name is Pete Wright. I'm sitting around the table here with Scott Lissett. Hello, Scott.
Good morning, Pete.
Good morning. And John Patton. Hello.
Hi, Pete. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. We are going to be continuing our discussion on that we started last week on this idea of what is a project management methodology, and we covered a little bit of what is a methodology versus a standard and definitions, and now if I'm right here, we're going to be moving on to things to consider as an organization if you are going to implement a methodology. Is that about where we stand?
Yeah, Pete. It's a serious step. And so in laying the groundwork, let's put some more things in place here. First of all, there isn't any perfect way to implement a methodology. This can be done a number of different ways. We're talking about organizational change here. Term today, transition management, change management, when anything new comes in. And so we're going to modify, we're going to enhance the way that organizations do projects and enable them to do that in a consistent, repeatable manner. So there are multiple ways to do the implementation. Also, every organization has some things that are unique about them. And those, we're going to have to adapt to those unique aspects of the company because those are the things that have made them great. But let's also recognize that there are many common factors across organizations, and that enables us to develop best practices in project management. So we want to select those best practices, determine what's best for the company in the beginning, like right now, and then put the others on the shelf. And as the company grows and is successful, matures in project management, we'll bring in more best practices. Above all, implementing a methodology is a journey, not an event. You don't take one shot at this and say, well, we're done. This is something which you must continue to evaluate and evolve over time. So there's some steps here called standardization, measurement. So once you standardize, then you have to design some metrics that tell you what's working, what's not working. Control. Okay? Control in a positive sense. Control limits. So what projects are going well and are within this acceptable range of performance that we've defined and which ones are not? And then on the basis of what we find, we're going to have to apply some continuous improvement. So those four things I talked about were standardization, measurement, control, and continuous improvement.
And when some people hear these kinds of things, and when we start dealing with change, you talked about change management and we talked about transition, change causes fear. And people can become fearful of being overly constrained by a methodology. Maybe they've been doing things ad hoc thus far, and it's been working just fine. Maybe individuals in the organization have individual experiences doing project management their own way.
Well, that's what I mean. In all fairness, that's what it sounds like. You walk in and you tell somebody who's been working ad hoc all along, you know what, we're going to provide standards, we're going to measure performance on projects, we're going to provide controls and then opportunities for continuous improvement. That's why it starts to sound intimidating and sort of political, doesn't it?
Early on, you could get this response, well, you've left no room for creativity.
Exactly.
You know, so creative people could feel threatened. Now, fortunately, Scott and Pete, not everybody is the same. There is an element of the organization consisting of people who love change. They desire change. They work with their hats on because, I've got to finish up here and then I'm needed over here, and they are the agents of change in any organization. There are other people that are pretty verbal in their ability to sell change. So look for those people who are very positive, who know that it's necessary to change to survive, and then there are other things to consider. In this organization, you've got to have a change management plan. You've got to understand how we're going to migrate the organization or you'll run into pockets of resistance at every level of the organization, where they're giving lip service, but really trying to continue to do things the way they've always done them. So more considerations are, you have to have a minimum set of fundamental behaviors or fundamental tools or techniques to implement a methodology successfully. So you don't do the whole thing first time out. We're going to be talking about what are those initial things that you put in place as you go in. You've got to consider the maturity of the organization. It's popular to rate organizations as level 1 through 5. Well, you can't come into an organization that's level 1 and say, well, tomorrow we're going to be level 3, whatever that is. And we've seen attempts to change organizations done that way in other disciplines. So it is necessary for the organization to move through levels of maturity.
Some sort of collective restraint.
Yeah. Now, there are techniques for accelerating that, but you move forward in steps. You hear a lot of talk nowadays about the project management office, for example. Well, an organization that has a maturity of what we'd say level 3 can be ready for a formal project management office. But a level 1 organization absolutely is not. They will reject additional organizational structures. And so, the approach we take with them is a virtual office. So in fact, when it comes to project management offices, PMOs, this can go from virtual on a gradient scale all the way to a formal organization that has all of the project managers in it. And we have to select what's right for the organization at the time.
Sort of letting the level of effort determine
yes.
the demands of the infrastructure.
Yes, okay. We have to look at how much time we're going to spend. How long is it going to take to get the methodology in place? I said it was a journey, not an event, so there needs to be a reasonable amount of time. It's not a big bang sort of approach. We want it to be measured, we want it to be rapid, but we don't want to choke the organization. We have to be able to recognize and overcome barriers. There are going to be some. And we also need to run this as a project or a series of projects. We need an implementation plan for a methodology.
Scott, you've been writing furiously over there. What are you thinking?
I have. Well, another factor is that you want to include all the key parts of the organization in creating the implementation strategy. Some parts of the organization may be really excited about it, and others may not. And it's important to include all parts or representatives from each part of the organization as you develop this strategy for implementing the methodology in the company. That way, you get supporters in all parts of the company.
Another great discussion, gents. Thank you for joining us around the table. We'll pick it up again, I think. We've got more to talk about. So join us again next week on behalf of...
Pete, we're just getting started.
Just getting started. On behalf of John Patton and Scott Lissett, I'm Pete Wright. Join us again next week on Ask Cadence.